Well, there you go. Good to know.
Ooh.
So, all right. So again, welcome. We are kicking off our look through Nehemiah. And so this particular time together will be about your lesson for June 6th. I just emailed you 2 editions of the study guide. One is for you, and it has the blanks filled in, and the other has some blanks in it, and that is for your group participants. There's not a whole bunch of blanks. They're more to deal with the message content than the questions or anything like that that are in the study guide. And we'll go over that here in just a little bit. But just a bit of a couple things of housekeeping. So I will be on vacation beginning the 2nd of June, which is next Wednesday. So I would like, if you're available, to meet on Tuesdays, the 1st, for this meeting. Again, it'll be recorded. If you can't make it, that's fine. But same time, so noon on the 1st of June, for conversation around the lesson for the 13th, which is on chapter 3. And just like usual, I'll record it and send out the video if you can't make it. That way you can get one more live session before the recorded session, which will be which would normally be on the 8th. No, it would be on the 9th. And I'll be on vacation then. So I'll record something for you, and that will be for the session on the 20th. So we're running 2 weeks ahead. And I will send that out. I will send that out as soon as it's recorded, which will be recorded before I leave. But I won't be able to answer any questions you might have about that lesson until I get back from vacation. But I'll be back on the 13th, and so I'll have some time to answer your questions if you have any before your sessions on the 20th. Does that make sense? Okay. All right. Very good. So let me open with a word of prayer, and then we will get rolling into Nehemiah 1 and 2. All right. Gracious and loving God, thank you so much for this day and for this chance that we have to gather together around your scriptures, particularly Nehemiah. And we're grateful for his witness to your faithfulness in his life and your call upon his life, and his willingness to engage in the work of rallying the people in Jerusalem to rebuild the wall. God, I pray that as these groups begin to meet and to have conversation and discussion around the text of Nehemiah, that you empower these leaders with your Holy Spirit to guide and direct them as they engage the conversation, and help folks make application of the scriptures to their own lives and to the life of our church. And we're grateful for all these things, and we pray it in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
All right. Yay, we have cats.
Yeah, we have another teacher.
All right.
A holy kitty.
The holy kitty. There you go. Very good. So, all right. So the lesson for June 1st covers Nehemiah 1 and 2. And it basically it sets the stage for the rest of the weeks in the series. So I've done a bit of background for you on the study guide, and just to kind of give you, and I'll do more of that in the message itself for the 6th. There are online resources that you can look up about the context of when Nehemiah was written and how it relates to Ezra. I do a brief overview of that in my message. But what you need to know is that Nehemiah was a Jewish exile who was living in Persia in the middle of the 5th century BC during the reign of Artaxerxes I. And he was the cupbearer to the king. And when he received news about the state of Jerusalem, he was overcome with emotion and spent time praying, and God revealed the plan for him to return to Jerusalem and help the people rebuild the wall. So so Ezra and Nehemiah are connected to one another because their time in Jerusalem is only separated by about 12 years. And so Ezra goes first, actually, to help with worship reforms, because before even Ezra returned to Jerusalem, a guy by the name of Zerubbabel went right after the Edict of Cyrus in 538 to go and rebuild the temple, because the temple was destroyed by the Assyrians. So I'll work the timeline for you. So in 587, sorry, 722 is when the Northern Kingdom fell. In 586 or 587, the Assyrians came in and destroyed took over Jerusalem, exiled all of those folks. And the temple was destroyed, wall was destroyed, everything was gone. They left just a few people there, took all the important people, all the people who were smart and wealthy and things like that, and took them into exile. So then in 538, Cyrus the Great was the king in Persia, and he defeated the Babylonians and said, okay, all of you Jewish people can go back to your homeland. And so the Edict of Cyrus in 538 made it available for all the Jews to return to Jerusalem if they wished. Now, some of them did, and some of them stayed. So hold on, let me get, I've got there we go. There it is. So Cyrus the Great, the edict in 538, his son followed him, and he was a bad dude. And then Darius the First came in 521, and then as far as biblical timelines go, Xerxes the First took over in 486. Now, Darius the First was the king of Persia during when Haggai and Zechariah were prophets, and so we have their prophetic witness during that time between 521 and 486. And then Xerxes the First is the guy who held the beauty contest that Esther won. So that's who that is. Xerxes the First, and Artaxerxes the First is his son. He takes over in 464, and he is the king in Persia when Ezra and Nehemiah rise to their time to return to Jerusalem. So not long following Cyrus the Great's edict to return the people to Jerusalem, Zerubbabel goes and begins the process. It gets delayed for a little while, and they finally finish it. And once they get it finished, then Ezra goes around 457 or so, and he's the one who goes to reform their worship. And then Nehemiah goes around 445. That's when Nehemiah 1 opens, is the year 445. All right, so there you go. I always have to remind myself that when it's BC, the numbers go down as the years pass, which is just weird, but it didn't. So Nehemiah opens with says, the words of Nehemiah, son of Hakaliah, in the month of Kislev in the 20th year. That's the 20th year of Artaxerxes. While I was
Dean, concerning years, just think of them as a countdown to the blast off.
Oh, there you go. That works. So while I was in Susa, which is the capital, it was the winter home for the Persian kings. Same place where Xerxes was and Esther lived. So if your folks make that connection as well. So one of Nehemiah's brothers comes and he asks about the Jews, and he says the survivors there in the province who escaped captivity are in great trouble and shame. The wall of Jerusalem is broken down and its gates have been destroyed by fire. So he's basically saying that even though the temple has been rebuilt, nothing else has really been done there. And so when Nehemiah hears these words, he sat down and wept and mourned for days, fasting and praying before the God of heaven. And then verses 5 through 11 walk us through this prayer. And it's a prayer of repentance. It's a prayer of seeking God for God's guidance in the midst of this, and reminding God that He commanded that there was a moment where He commanded Moses to tell the people that if you are unfaithful, I'll scatter you among the peoples, which is what happened. But if you return to me and keep my commandments and do them, though your outcasts are under the farthest skies, I will gather them from there and bring them to the place at which I have chosen to establish my name. So again, this idea that restoration is possible, return to Jerusalem is possible if the people will turn. And so he's praying on behalf of the people of Israel and himself to have their ear be attentive, and that they delight in revering His name. And then this line right at the end of verse 11 says, "Give success to your servant today and grant him mercy in the sight of this man." So up until this point, Nehemiah has been praying in general terms. And this part of the verse, in verse 11, Nehemiah turns his attention to the king. That's the man that he's talking about there, is the king Artaxerxes. And then he goes on to say, at that time, I was cupbearer to the king. And so he knows that as God is revealing these things to him, as he's praying and as he's spending this time, because it turns out he's spending 4 months praying, he's there every day with the king. And he knows that if he's going to carry out this plan that God is beginning to reveal to him, he's going to need the king's help to make it happen. All right. So just to give you a time frame, Kislev is basically November, December. Kislev is the Jewish month. November, December is our month. And then chapter 2 opens in the month of Nisan, which is March or April. It's the month when Passover is. It's the month it's the month of Passover. And it says it's still the 20th year of King Artaxerxes. So it's just the way that the different Persian king, his time as a king probably started in the middle of a year. So, all right. Very good. Okay. So as he is, as chapter 2 opens, he carries the wine and gives it to the king. And he says, I've never been sad in the presence of the king before. So the king looks at him and says, your face is different. He says, why is your face sad since you're not sick? This can only be sadness of the heart. I was much afraid. I said to the king, may the king live forever. Why should my face not be sad when the city, the place of my ancestors' graves, lies waste and its gates have been destroyed by fire? So he's telling, I guess for the first time, he's telling the king all these things he's been thinking about and praying about and pondering on for the last 4 months. And the king answers him with, "What do you request?" And instead of just blurting out what he wants, he stops and prays. He says, "I prayed to the God of heaven, and then I said, if it pleases the king, and if your servant has found favor with you, I ask that you send me to Judah, to the city of my ancestors' grave, so that I may rebuild it." And surprisingly, or not, depending on how you look at it, the king says, "How long will you be gone? And when will you return?" So he grants him his request. He finds favor. He has success. He's been granted mercy, like from the tag in verse 11 of chapter 1. So he tells him, he sets him a date, and then he asks for basically supplies, letters of passage through the lands between Persia and Jerusalem, which is about a 4-month journey on foot, and then for supplies to be added, timbers, especially for the gates and for his home. And at the end of verse 8, the king granted me what I asked for the gracious hand of God, my God was upon me. And then he came to the governors of the province beyond the river and gave them the king's letter. And the understanding is that he got the supplies that he needed and safe passage through those places. And then verse 10 is the first time we meet a couple of guys who will appear throughout the rest of the book, which is who are Sanballat and Tobiah. These guys are not excited about Nehemiah coming back to rebuild Jerusalem and the wall around Jerusalem. Sanballat is he's the governor of Samaria, which is in that middle portion of the land. So Galilee is the northern region, and then there's Samaria, and then the Judean region is in the southern portion where Jerusalem is. And so Samaria is, when we get to the New Testament, Samaria is the place that the Jews avoid going and walking through. They'll go all the way, they'll cross over the Jordan River and go north that way, and then come back around to avoid, getting, polluted by the Samaritans. So there's this, so even back, 500 years prior to Jesus, the Jews and the Samaritans are, while they're still cousins to one another, there's still strife between them. And then Tobiah is a governor of Ammon, and so he's, but he's Jewish. He's part of an influential Jewish family, but apparently he's got a stake in the fact that the walls around Jerusalem are not yet rebuilt. And so so Tobiah and Sanballat are both greatly displeased that someone has come to seek the welfare of the people of Israel. Verse 10 says, and they'll keep coming up. They will come back over and over again in the first 5 or 6 chapters here. So once Nehemiah gets to Jerusalem, he does something very interesting, and I'll point this out in my message for the 6th, is that he waits. He waits for 3 days. He doesn't just jump right into the work, but he waits. And then he gets up in the middle of the night, takes a few people with him, and doesn't tell them what they're doing, but they go and they basically make a circuit around Jerusalem, looking at all the rubble, looking at the burned out gates, looking at the places that the work will need to be done. And at one point, he has to dismount from whatever animal he was riding. It's unclear whether it's a horse or a donkey. It just depends on, I don't know. It doesn't really matter. And he goes on foot and then finds his way back to the Valley Gate, which is where he started. And he says, the officials did not know where I had gone or what I was doing. I had not yet told the Jews, the priests, the nobles, the officials, and the rest that were to do the work. So he's holding things close to the vest at this point. He's he's still discerning all the things that need to be done. He's making the plans that need to be made so that the work can start, that people can buy into the work and their need to engage in it. But then also he is being patient with this process. And then finally, in the last 4 verses of the chapter, he's now going to let the cat out of the bag. And he says, "You see the trouble we're in, how Jerusalem lies in ruins with its gates burned. Come, let us rebuild the wall of Jerusalem so that we may no longer suffer disgrace." He tells them that the hand of God has been gracious upon him and that the king has backed him up too. That's Artaxerxes. And so they say, let's start building, and they commit themselves to the common good. And then Sanballat and Tobiah, and then another guy named Geshem, the Arab, hear of it, and they start in with the ridicule. They start in mocking. They're like, "You're never going to finish this. You'll never get it done. There's no way you'll actually do this." And then verse 20 says, Nehemiah replies to them, "The God of heaven is the one who will give us success, and we, his servants, are going to start building, but you have no share or claim or historic right in Jerusalem." All right. So at that point, the people have now bought in. The people are now committed, and they will very quickly begin the work as chapter 3 opens. So, all right. So when we did Acts, each day's reading had questions that went along with it. The study guide is a little bit different this time around. It has the one for this Sunday has 12 questions, and they are grouped up into 3 different sections. So 3 questions deal with the first chapter, and then there's 4 questions that deal with the first part of chapter 2, and then there's 5 questions that deal with the final part of chapter 2. So it works in order as you're doing the reading, but it's not a question or 2 questions per day or whatever. There is space if people print it out, they can write in there, or I made a note in the instructions that if they wanted to keep a journal or a notebook or something like that, then they could have that to write their reflections in that. So however people are comfortable responding to those questions is fine with me. It's just, so there's that. Okay, so I will, and I told them, and the reading plan is also on each of the discussion guides, and let's see, and then the prep work discussion is, having a notebook, read and meditate on the passages, listen to Sunday's message, and then be prepared to engage with your group around the following discussion. And it's still 6 days of reading and 1 day of worship and rest, just like Acts was. So, all right. I'll stop there. We've covered the text, giving you a broad outline. Now I will give you a chance to ask what questions you might have as far as tools you might need for leading your group, or questions you need answered as you're getting ready, things that came up in your own study.
First question I've got, Nehemiah obviously has a deep reverence and love for the city of Jerusalem. Has he ever lived in Jerusalem, or Was he
I had
born
that same
in captivity?
question. He ever been there since he was alive, or is it just his ancestors?
Right. No, he's never lived there.
Okay.
No, he's tracing his lineage back there, but no, he's never lived there. He's not, because the people haven't lived in Israel since 587. Like they've been in Babylon since
So
5.
like a good question to ask is, have you ever had grandparents who talked about their love for someplace they've lived that you've never known?
That's a good one. Yeah. Okay. What else? What other questions do you have?
What stuck out to me a little bit was just I mean, the way you split it out, start with prayer and then patience and planning, and then get the buy-in of the groups. The best sound like a game plan for any endeavor you're going to go through, is to get your priorities right. Get your guidance from your prayer, get everybody on board, and then get the buy-in from them. So I've always thought of Nehemiah as a book about discipline and sticking with something, no matter how hard it gets or how tough things get, that you don't stop. You finish it out. And that's, to me, that's when I think about Nehemiah, that's what I think about.
Because things will get tough. I mean, when we get to chapters 4 and 5, I mean, they're building with a tool in one hand and a sword in the other hand. And there's somebody on the wall at all times, and Nehemiah doesn't change his clothes for a month or something like that. While the entire time it's they're seriously committed. So.
And the cupbearer for the king, I mean, did he not really just test all his food to make sure it wasn't poisoned? Isn't that his main job?
I mean, that's basically the description of it. Yeah, he would take a sip of the wine to make sure it wasn't poisoned, and probably I don't know if there was a food taster or if that was his job as well, but yeah, he was his proximity to the king was just, I mean, right there. He saw the king multiple times a day, every day of his job. So,
Sound like a pretty upbeat fella. He'd never seen him sad before.
right. Well, yeah. You're muted, Ted. Sorry. I don't know if he's talking about. We couldn't hear you, Ted. You were muted.
Sorry.
That's good.
I mean, he was very wise in the things he said to the leaders of Samaria and the Horonites, because by telling them that they had no claim to Jerusalem, he built up the strength and courage of the Israelites to continue with this task.
Yes, it did. And that strength will come in handy when those guys show up again.
Yeah.
What else? Anything context-wise, as far as historical context, or anything?
What's the big deal with the wall? Why wouldn't they want to rebuild homes and stuff first?
Security, isn't it security?
Yeah, if
yeah,
it's there are, depending on which resource you utilize for commentary or for further study, they'll draw the walls a little differently. You know, it feels like the walls are, he's basically getting the most vital things surrounded and protected. And so, you know, they've got to get the temple surrounded on the northern end. They've got to get the pool of Siloam encapsulated so that they can have a, you know, that water source safe. And you know, and then there's the king's house and, you know, all the governor's house and things like that that are there in the middle. So some diagrams are a little bit wider in their scope of how far the wall went, and some are a little bit more narrow. Just really depends on how people are drawing it and interpreting the, you know, the comparison between those walls and the current walls. You know, what we'll see happen, you know, over the course of you know, of time, is that those walls will be extended. So when if you go there now, obviously Jerusalem is, you know, incorporates a whole lot more space than it did at this point. Sandy, you'll get to see that next year.
But the walls being down made them real vulnerable, didn't it? I mean, and it kind of takes me back is when we had the hailstorm here, and when people had, you know, windows and stuff knocked out of, you know, if you think about it, windows not much protection to start with, but just the uneasiness that brought on everybody, you know, besides letting weather in, but just that they felt so vulnerable when the windows were broke that, you know, put a lot of plywood up trying to block them in, but just that uneasiness that you know, anybody could just walk through anytime. That's where my mind goes from when you think about the wall being down. They were vulnerable. Anybody could come and take stuff and leave, and there's nothing to slow them down, I guess.
Well, and with Jerusalem being such a historic city, you know, for hundreds of years, having been the, you know, the pinnacle of Solomon's, you know, empire and all that jazz, that for it to be, you know, to have no wall whatsoever just invites mockery and ridicule. It invites, you know, invading folks to just come by and do what they wish. And so, yeah, it's certainly a measure of protection that was vital for the ongoing safety of the community, and a point of pride as well for the people, and a point of honor towards God because of the presence of the temple. And they got that done, but then they didn't get the protection around it to keep anybody else from coming in and knocking it down again. It took them so long to get it back up.
Wasn't one of the reasons that they were against the building of the wall, those that were against it, because they felt that it was, that if the walls were built, that the people would rebel against the king at some point once they had the security of the wall?
That's probably possible. You know, I think the monarchy at that point was probably pretty fragile. After, in the post-exilic times, you know, they were reestablishing themselves and their presence in Jerusalem again, and in that region after, you know, the years in exile. So it was just, I would imagine any king in that particular time period would have felt the need to hold on to as much control as they possibly could.
Was there an official king of the Jews at this time?
I think so.
When they went into exile, was there a line that was maintained? I don't remember.
Well, let's see. Trying to remember which king it was that that was taken away.
Wasn't that the main function of exile, was to take all the leaders of any kind and disperse them out everywhere? So what was left was not any leadership at all, and cause them from reestablishing. I mean, that's what I remember the most about the exile. It was taking any kind of leaders and dispersing them so they couldn't, get back together. And so they left it in total chaos, because all the ones that left didn't have any kind of leadership skills or had never been in a leadership position. Wasn't that kind of the...
Yeah, that's the basic plan of exile, is to throw the people you've just conquered into chaos.
So
And
I was thinking,
you can from the people that actually have some sort of wealth or status.
I was thinking that was probably part of Sandoval and Tobiah's objection, was that they probably had a little power and control by the walls being down, and maybe by providing protection or some kind of power by those. But once those walls were built back up, that kind of took them out of the picture. I may be wrong, but that's just what my mind went to, and we started talking about them, their objections to the wall being rebuilt.
Right. I am trying to find out who the king was when
Well, I'm looking at a timeline that doesn't show any kings at all after that.
Okay. All right, so Zedekiah was the last king in Jerusalem. He's the one he rebelled against Nebuchadnezzar, who was the Babylonian king at the time. And they took into, they burned. This is 2 Chronicles 36. 19, the Babylonians burned the house of God, broke down the wall of Jerusalem, and burned all its palaces with fire, and destroyed all its precious vessels. He took into exile in Babylon those who had escaped from the sword, and they became servants to him and to his sons until the establishment of the kingdoms of Persia. So Zedekiah was the last king, and I do believe they, I don't know, Nebuchadnezzar was one of those guys who'd poke your eyes out, and then he'd make you watch him kill your sons, and then poke your eyes out, and then kill you. It's one of those guys, nice, real nice guy. So yeah, real compassionate.
Until he got put out to pasture.
Yeah, that's right. Oops. All right. Okay. What other questions do you have? Anything that you need for that first week of your classes?
Just a statement that represents kind of the overarching theme of Nehemiah.
Yeah.
Is it just rebuilding Jerusalem? Is that the main theme? Or?
Yeah, I mean, it's so the subtitle to the sermon series is Rebuild, Restore, Revive. And basically that's what happens throughout the book, is that as the wall is rebuilt, it restores the pride of the people. It restores the people to Jerusalem and their protection, and it revives them as the people of God. And those reforms that Ezra did, a decade before, really take hold once the wall is complete, and the people of Jerusalem, they rally together, and they are able to revive themselves as a people, as a people group. So
Thank you.
yeah, sure. Sandy, any questions you're already anticipating from your class members?
Not until I start looking at your the papers you sent out with the questions.
All right.
Yeah.
So I tried to
Find something.
I tried to do a mix of thinking and reflecting questions as well, on the text itself, but then also personally. So and feel free to ask whatever other questions.
So this, what we've been talking about today, is the beginnings of the study of Nehemiah will be a week from Sunday for as far as Sunday school classes are concerned. Is that right?
Yeah, the reading plan starts on Monday.
Yeah.
And then the lesson that you'll do is for Sunday the 6th.
Okay.
You said you're recording this. Where is the recording available? On the website?
For this meeting right here, I'll send y'all an email in a little bit with a YouTube link to my YouTube page, and it'll be there for you to grab and watch later.
How do you do that? When you set the recording, do you set it to save on your disk and then you upload it to YouTube?
That's what I do. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Because I tried both ways and don't like it much either way.
Okay.
This isn't on the lesson, but do I get a new link for the Sunday school class since I'm going to be hosting the next 2 weeks?
Well, let's see.
We have a meeting link that I send out every week. I assume it would still be good. It's just Gail will be the host instead of me. Is that
Okay.
right?
Let's see. I would think that let me double check on that. We've worked that with Sandy because Peggy came over to your house and used your computer and your account.
Yeah.
That's not going to be the situation here. So I will get back to you by the end of the day with that information. It may be as simple as Ted adding Gail as a co-host to the meeting, and then either one of you can open it up. So I will.
Are we gonna have books?
No, the study guide that you got is what you get.
Okay.
So yeah, no.
You see is what you get.
We're going low tech sort of this time.
Okay.
All right.
Are you ready to tell us what comes next?
There's Gary. He's constantly asking.
I know. He just wants to know, right? No, I am not at a point yet to see what's coming next. Sorry. I wish I did.
All right.
I'm working on sermon number 5 of 5 in the last 2 weeks right now. So my head is like, so, and then I'm going to be on vacation for a week and a half.
Dean, just don't send it to Gary first. Don't send it to him first.
I'll send out an email and leave Gary.
So you're gonna be gone a week and a half.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to retrain you.
What season are we in with the church calendar after Pentecost?
Where are you going?
Oh, all right. Well, let me answer Ted's first. So
Okay,
it's it's ordinary time, is the season after Pentecost. It lasts all the way up until Christ the King Sunday, which is the Sunday before Advent starts.
Okay.
So this is ordinary time. And then to Sandy's question, we will be spending 4 days in Branson and 3 days in Hot Springs, Arkansas. So, yep.
Enjoy. Don't think
Yeah.
about it.
Oh no, I'll think about y'all. I just won't answer my phone or email. So. I'm kidding. I guess I would answer my phone if you called, but I won't answer email.
So there are some dens of iniquity in those places, so watch out.
All right, we're gonna hang out in the water park that's attached to the hotel we're staying at. So.
Then the question comes up, how does Ted know about the dens of iniquity?
thank you, Gail.
Oh, you got me there.
Uh-huh.
I'm just assuming they're everywhere. So
Yeah.
Bingo. Yeah.
That's the scene there.
Just real quick,
Yep.
I don't know if everybody is aware of this book or got this book or whatever.
Nope.
I ask because our class during the last month has been doing Ezra right in front of Nehemiah, and it has really provided a good dovetail into what Pastor Dean's going to be doing. But just definitely think that this is an excellent resource for additional study, especially for us.
I'll put a link to that book on the email that I send out with the video link. So if you want to check it out, I think it's like $10 or $11. And I'll link to the other ones
16.
that I have. So like,
Yeah.
So you have, so I got that one. Then I've also got this one, and this one, and this one. So I'll put links to those
Hey.
if you're interested. And they're all different, and they all provide a different angle to kind of look at the text, and so it's, so if you hear me quote from a
I
scholar,
miss NT Wright though.
I know he just doesn't do Old Testament. He's a New Testament scholar.
I just Golden Gate, but this is new. First couple verses, chapters. We'll see. Maybe he'll
Yeah.
get better.
I miss him too. So.
Yep.
We'll get back. We'll get back there. Don't you worry.
I'd like to share something out of this book that I found to be kind of I don't know what the right word, inspiring to me, so to speak. For those of you that have the book, page 52, it's the middle paragraph. As well as being the teaching of Moses and of Ezra and the other people whose names we don't know, the Torah that Ezra brings is the teaching of Yahweh, the gracious gift whereby God endows the community with the means to show that it really is committed to God this time. And that is indeed how it turned out. After this time of Ezra, the Judahites became a people who did worship Yahweh alone, who did abjure the making of images, who were careful about the way they used Yahweh's name, and who kept the Sabbath. In the New Testament, you never read of Jews failing to keep these basic expectations of Moses' teaching. Ezra has been described as the father of Judaism, and this is one connection in which this is an appropriate designation. So basically what they're saying is everybody before Ezra, the people just would fall away. Ezra got the word across, made them understand how important it was.
Right.
So and we're coming into Nehemiah. Ezra will be part of Nehemiah, of course, but I thought that was a really good point that he was making with that.
Good deal. Thanks, Gabe. Okay. what else? Anything else before we sign off?
Or any more words on the reconstruction?
Yeah, we met with Roy and Debbie Willis and I met with Memo this morning. He's our construction foreman. And they are going to finish up replacing all the ceiling tiles this week, and they will get started on flooring Monday or Tuesday next week. They're going to start with tile, and then they will get all that done, and then they will do carpet. And so they expect flooring to take 3 to 4 weeks to get it all in and situated. So I will send out an update email later today with that and some pictures. So that's things are moving along. They're going to start working on the build out of the media booth upstairs, and they'll they're hoping that, well, Memo said he's hoping to have all of the churches that they are working on right now done by July. So that's
Okay, good deal.
Will we have the kneeling rail around the whole front?
yes,
Okay.
the stage redesign was the front lines were mimicked from the previous one, so we are going to reuse the kneeling rails from the previous stage. They'll just be moved out 8 feet.
Okay.
So,
Yep.
Yep. Very good. Okay, very good. Well, thank y'all so much for being here. And again, we'll be together again on Tuesday, the 1st of June at noon for this session. It'll be recorded if you can't make it, and I'll drop you all an email with the link to that. And I'll send an email with the link to this video if you want to watch it again, and I'll have the resource links in there too. So.
Don't forget the link to our Zoom for our class for Gail.
Yeah, as well. So. All righty, very good. Thank y'all so much. If you have any questions between now and the time I go on vacation, just hit me up. I'll be happy to get you taken
Thank
care
you, Pastor.
You are very welcome.
Okay.
God bless you.
God bless.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful vacation.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Enjoy every minute of it.
Will do.